Morning, everyone. I'd like to welcome you all to our monthly Tech Talk. The topic for today is protecting your data in a hybrid IT environment. My name is Dan Pera. I'm in the Sales and Marketing Department at Networking Technologies. Our host for today's presentation is Networking Technology Sales Engineer Tom Karapi. In addition to Tom, we'll be joined by Don Lind. Don is an HPE Storage technology architect. Don has over 30 years of experience in the IT industry and is a tremendous asset to Networking Technologies and our customers. Over the next hour, Don will discuss how HPE Storage can protect your data in a hybrid IT world from on-premise to cloud and everything in between. Before we begin, just want to cover a couple housekeeping items. In regards to asking questions, things of that nature, we will have a Q&A session at the following Don's presentation. If any questions come up throughout the presentation, you can send those via the chat window on the right-hand corner of the screen. Shoot those over to me, and I will collect those and present those to Don following the presentation. If there's any issues with volume or too loud, too low, anything like that, you can hit the hand sign on the bottom right-hand corner of the screen. I'll then message you, and we can work through that. But at this point, I'd like to turn it over to Don Lind from HPE, and he'll give us a great presentation. Don?
Great, Dan. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Yep.
Yeah, it's a very interesting topic, and hopefully the information I share today will help you understand better what your options are relative to protecting your data. The whole goal of data protection is to minimize risk to an organization. And I have this one upfront slide to show the potential issues, risks that every organization has and how primary and secondary storage are there to address. If we start in the left-hand columns of file loss and file corruption, typically you want to handle those issues through going back to a very recent snapshot on a storage array. Or if you are not using snapshots, then your other recourse is to go to a backup file, a disk backup, or a tape backup, or something that you maybe have already taken to the cloud and restore it from there. Then we have to look at hardware platform failures, data center outages, and things like that. And the best practice in the world today is now to do some replication of storage at the primary storage level. And then that gets you the shortest recovery point objective. How much data did you lose when your data center went offline, kind of thing. If you're replicating synchronously, there's no data loss, or if you're doing it every 15 minutes, there's only 15 minutes of data loss. But then if you look at the secondary storage, typically those are dailies. So ultimately you have a data center outage, you potentially lose 24 hours of data if you're doing daily incrementals or things like that. Then there's the whole world of malware and ransomware, and there are multiple ways to recover from that. The best is with snapshots, since you can do it very, very quickly on the primary storage array, or then you can go to your backups, be it a disk backup solution or tape or a cloud archive. And ultimately, the final component that we have to provide for some organizations is for long-term retention and compliance. And really, secondary storage is the only cost-effective solution to do that. And that can be either tape or a cloud archive. Disk-based backups appliances tend to get a little bit expensive if you're looking for multi-year retention. So there used to be a 3-2-1 rule for backups and restores, and I just coined this term myself, a new 4-3-1 rule, which is really not kind of intuitive, but 3-2-1 is not really best practice anymore, because ultimately we want to have 4 copies of data in 3 different types of media formats, with one of those copies being off-site. And where we get this is you have your first, and you might even have more copies of your data. You're not necessarily using up any more disk capacity on your storage system, but you're keeping fixed point in time copies, immutable copies of your data that can't be corrupted. And that's where we see the first and second copy on your primary storage, the first copy being your volume, which is actively being used and can be attacked. And then you have your second quasi copy in a snapshot. And then the best practice is to let's get that primary storage offsite in real time synchronously, or maybe even periodically, to an offsite primary storage array. And that's your first couple of copies of data are there. Then we have, hey, let's use a backup software utility to drive some backups to a different media format onto a disk-based backup appliance, which is really what is most popular today. Pretty much, very, very few organizations are using tape drives in this level anymore, just because of the quantity of data and how tapes are just not that great from having, hundreds of terabytes of data stored on them very easily. And getting them back is somewhat problematic. Then we have the concept of, okay, now we have to get off-site, so let's take a copy of that backup appliance and take it to another backup appliance, and that's one way of solving that. Or the other one that's now come to market in the last few years is with the advent of the Amazons, the Microsofts of the world, and their storage in the quote cloud, really just another data center. But they have some APIs into that storage in the cloud, and backup software and backup appliances are now able to replicate to that for your fourth copy of data, which is off-site. And that could be for long-term retentions, and we'll talk about how we accomplish that. Or you could also go to tape. You don't have to go to cloud. You could actually just go to tape once a year, take those tapes to the mines, and now you have your compliance long-term retention. So that's a much less expensive way of doing it, because the cloud can be, can cost a bit of money, but there's more moving parts that you have to physically set up, getting things off premise and things like that, whereas going to the cloud is over the internet, and it's very easy to get the data there. So what tools are we at HPE offering you to make this easy? Well, we have more than what we're going to even discuss today, but for the mid-market, really our main go-to-market tools that we offer are either in server and storage appliances, what people are calling hyper-converged, and our branding of that is SimpliVity, from a company we acquired several years ago. Or if you already have your host compute, your compute nodes, CPUs, we then also offer Nimble Storage as a way of presenting data and protecting data with snapshots and replicating and things like that. Now, with the left-hand side, which is the SimpliVity area, built into the software, which is providing both your hypervisor and your distributed storage, we have the capability of distributing other nodes to another secondary data center, and they can be active. So these can be active type of environments. And now you can have very, very quick and easy backups and recovery points, both local and off-site. Now with the storage flavor that we're going to show here, and then you'd have host in front of it, we can then also offer another storage array, Nimble Target Array, for both use as active as a storage array or as dev and test or other things like that, as well as a replication target. Several years ago, 3-4 years ago, we also saw the need to giving storage to cloud compute, and that can be a target as well from our Nimble Storage Array. Then we take that second step, and the second step is to say, hey, now how do we get that third copy of data to a backup appliance? HPE, for the last 10 years, has a product called Store Once. It is a purpose-built backup appliance. So it can look like a virtual tape drive to backup software. It can look like a NAS share to backup software. And then that can be replicated from that Store Once appliance to another Store Once appliance, be it at another data center you might own, or into what we call a new technology called Cloud Bank, which leverages Amazon's and Microsoft cloud storage. And we'll go into that in detail. Now, those things are all controlled by backup software. On the left, it's controlled by the built-in software of the storage array, the SimpliVity storage. on the left, and it's backup software, external backup software controlled on the right. So now, how do we decide between SimpliVity and Nimble? Well, with SimpliVity, we say, organizations are saying, hey, I don't want to buy storage anymore. I want to collapse all the silos. I'm buying servers and storage right now. What can you give me, HPE and networking technologies, to make my life much, much easier? And that is what SimpliVity is all about. It's combining servers and storage, hypervisor, easy deployment, easy scaling, and we'll go into how that works in a moment. Now, what about Nimble? Well, Nimble is saying, hey, I want a new storage approach and a new support approach, and that's what Nimble is all based on, is a whole new support model. And I just purchased servers. I have 4, 3, 10, 50, 100, Gen 9, Gen 10 HPE servers, the latest and greatest Dell servers, latest and greatest Lenovo, whatever. I just, spent $30, $50, $100,000 on servers, and I really want to leverage those assets for another 3 or 4 years. But my storage is getting old. It's 3 or 4 years old. I need to update that. Well, let's talk about Nimble, and that's where organizations are considering Nimble. So let's go first through the SimpliVity and how SimpliVity works. And what it is a scale-out cluster solution. So in this picture, you see our DL380 Gen 10 servers, and it's a hypervisor running on that. And what we've done is we said, what's the hot buzzword in the industry today? It's deduplication and compression. Well, what we found in our competitors and saw in our competitors is they have a real issue about fully supporting using both dedupe and compression on all workloads, because they're doing it in software only, and it's really putting an extra burden on those CPUs and taking a lot of compute power away from virtual machines, application virtual machines. So what we did was, 5, 6 years ago, is we developed a PCI accelerator card specific to doing the dedupe and compression functions to offload the CPUs from doing that dedupe and compression function. But we also took it a step further and we said, you know what? Other vendors are using naked disks underneath and not providing a very high level of data availability on every node. So if a node were to fail on our competitor's storage, server storage node, hyperconverged node, it would have to go over the network and then get the data from another node. And to rebuild that, it would have to leverage the same network that my client applications are using, causing a potential slowdown in the end user's application. So what we decided to do is to say, hey, let's take up the high road here. Let's leverage the storage array controller. So now we can use all the RAID 5s and RAID 6 capabilities to protect against single disk failures without having to go over the network and tax another node. So we can ultimately, in most of ours are using RAID 6, which provides 2 disks worth of data protection. We can support 3 drives worth of failure without causing any issues in the environment. And even on a single node, we can support at least 2 drives, and typically there are multiple RAID 6 sets, so we could ultimately potentially have 4 drives of failure on a node if they're the right drives, and everything continues to operate at normal. You're not even failing over to another node, etc. So it's a really, really highly available solution that we think customers need to be looking at even closer of what the uptime requirements are for their applications. So as a application writes into a node where its storage is connected to on that virtual machine above it, we always replicate unique writes. So we will not replicate anything that's already on the system, and we have a very sophisticated file system under the covers, which can replicate terabytes of data with a single 8-bit, communication to the other node. So all unique writes are replicated to another node, and then we also have the capability to scale out so that now you can just add another node, add another node, add another node, and the system will automatically rebalance. But that's not, that's kind of everyone kind of does that. We think we do it better in a lot of different ways from high availability, but we are head and shoulders above everybody else is the capability to do integrated data protection across remote sites. So now you can have a couple of nodes at your primary location for a small customer and a single node at a remote location, and that will all look like local data. So when you go to do a backup and say, I want to back up this virtual machine, and that this will automatically happen if you set the right policies and they're kind of automatically set up, it will also back up that virtual machine every 30 minutes, every day, every hour, whatever it is, to that remote site, and the recovery from that remote site is trivial. You right click, go to all SimpliVity actions, say, restore this VM or recover this VM, and boom, it'll get resignatured, re-registered into the hypervisor, and it's ready to be used. And so we're really providing a backup solution, backup and restore solution, built into the SimpliVity nodes. And what has this meant for our customers? Increased administration speed and productivity. Their IDC says it's an 81% increase in time available to focus on apps and new projects. We're taking things off your plate. We're giving dramatically faster application performance. 88% of customers see dramatic increases in application response times. For example, Aston Martin, Red Bull Racing, and CIMAC improved their app performance 4.5 times. They had 3x faster database queries. We also have tremendous efficiency gains. So we have the ability to, in less than a minute, back up or restore a 1 terabyte VM. And if you've been a VMware administrator ever, if you know about cloning a terabyte VM, that could take hours and hours of time, and we do it in less than 1 minute. We also get improved efficiencies relative to capacity and recovery speeds. Our average customers are seeing 52-to-1 data efficiencies from dedupe and compression over the wide area. We save 90% of the capacity across storage and backup combined. So as you look at that holistic solution of your primary storage and your backup, we're doing tremendous data efficiencies with our dedupe and compression and our whole file system and architecture. We have a very broad group of models to choose from extra small to extra large, starting out at 3 to 6 terabytes of effective capacity per node, up to 40 to 80. And then we have a very, very detailed sizing capability that networking technologies can work with you on to know exactly what's going on in your existing site today, and we can show you very clearly what you need in a SimpliVity solution. We did just make an announcement. So, as I said, we've always been using this hardware-based appliance. So what we did decide was, hey, we don't want to limit ourselves for those certain environments that don't necessarily need that hardware dedupe and compression. So we translated that code and put it into software. So now the CPUs will be doing both dedupe and compression. So we have fixed use cases. Really, VDI in this instance is one of them, or another is remote office, branch office that I have very low IOPS needs, 500 IOPS, 1,000 IOPS, trivially very, very low IOPS. But I want a very, very dense solution. So we now are basing this on our HPE Apollo platform, which it's a mini blade system in some respects. And you can have up to 4 blades of, 4 nodes in these, or you can have up to 2 depending on which model. And the 190 model allows you to have some PCI slots, so you can put some GPUs in there. So if you're doing VDI, you might want to use the 190 nodes, so you can add some M10 or other GPUs in there to do offloads of graphics for that VDI environment. So we offer, if I go back, we offer the classic DL380 Gen 10 models with that hard-based accelerator card, and then we also offer our new SimpliVity 2600 for certain use cases. So that covers this aspect of this 431 rule I talked about, getting your first and second copies of data both on-premise and off-site. So as we talked about deciding between SimpliVity and Nimble, if you were looking at, hey, I have my CPU, I have my servers, I really don't want to address that right now. I'm using Blades, I'm using Synergy, I'm using other things. Hey, can I use external storage to get my data integrity? And yes, you can. And what we want to talk about here is how Nimble has created a whole new approach to product design, et cetera. We leverage what we call artificial intelligence, and we've branded this as HPE InfoSight. And we're leveraging this to provide you differentiated support, business intelligence, and product development. So InfoSight, which is our whole way of looking at product design and support, and we called it InfoSight. And what we're doing is that the Nimble OS code was written from the ground up for deeper analytics than anything else. What we wanted to do is we wanted to say, hey, let's get people out of that level 1 and level 2 support area. And so let's metric all of our components, software and hardware on our storage array, and then let's apply artificial intelligence to that and see what's going on. The second thing we do is our engineering team uses it to improve current and to build new systems and software. We do not do anything unless the data tells us it's required. We don't just listen to a marketing person say, hey, we know this company's doing X, Y, and Z at this block level or blah, blah, blah. Let's build ours around that. We don't care about that. We say, hey, let's look at the data. Let's look at the block sizes that we're seeing across our whole fleet of 40,000 arrays and see if that makes sense to do. And engineering uses this data that way. And product management uses it to prove use cases. We use it internally to get funding for projects and to make business decisions on where we see the market going. Support uses it to troubleshoot problems faster than any other vendor can, because we've already built in the ability to do root cause analysis through this artificial intelligence. It's integrated into our entire sales process. We use salesforce.com at HPE, and allows us to leverage these tools so that we and our partners can do best sizing and upgrades of existing systems. And then it does proactive problem avoidance, which spans the whole infrastructure. We leverage what we're learning at other sites to help you, and we'll show that in a little bit of detail. Now, InfoSight, when we acquired Nimble about 2 years ago, we decided that, and I think we really acquired Nimble for this whole artificial intelligence and InfoSight and the whole way of doing business, and we're applying this to other HPE products. This is coming, we've had some of these components already in other products, but we're taking it more holistically into our SimpliVity. So we already have some of this with what we call OmniWatch. That's just going to be expanded using the whole InfoSight model. We've already taken a bunch to our 3-PAR arrays. We're taking it to our DL and ML reliant servers. We're taking it to Synergy and Blade system. So we're taking this whole way of doing business and applying it to our other products. So let's talk about what storage arrays are. There are a lot of companies that are saying, hey, we only do all flash arrays. Nimble was designed as a hybrid array. Well, really, to be honest, every single array is a hybrid array, because you have your front end IO coming in from the left. It's going into controller DRAM, that's one tier. Then it's going to SSD temp space or cache, other space, and then it's going to the final resting place on either NVMe or SSD or SATA drives. So if you look at the back end and you say SSD as is the back end, you still have a 3-tier hybrid array. So what we did in Nimble Storage was we designed ourselves in that way to be adaptive. So what we said was, hey, let's make the software architecture truly hybrid capable so that we can leverage the appropriate technologies in the front end, and we do a thing called NVRAM. NV stands for non-volatile RAM, and this is where all data lands initially and then gets replicated to the other controller in the array, the standby controller in the array. So now you have protected RAM at the highest possible performance and lowest possible latency. Then we leverage SSD drives as cache or as the final resting place for back-end storage. And in our adaptive arrays, we can also have SATA drives, and in our latest generation arrays, we will be able to add NVMe drives in the back. But really, the extra cost of the NVMe drives today really don't warrant us for putting them in quite yet. The new Gen 5 Nimble arrays are NVMe capable, but when it finally hits market, in a more commodity fashion from a cost point of view, we'll bring them into the back end. There really isn't a big win for putting NVMe drives in the back end. What there is a big win for, and we've already announced, is the capability to, instead of using that SSD as a caching layer, we can add a PCI card into our storage array, and it is called storage class memory, which gives you significantly more memory for doing your working space, your metadata, your pinned volumes. Whereas NVRAM is 8 gigabytes today, we're looking at 750 gigabytes of storage class memory, very close to the performance of that NVRAM. So that's the first thing that's going to come out. Then we're going to move to NVMe on the back end, and then we'll also do NVMe on the front end out to the hosts. So the other big area from a data availability point of view, like we talked about, with SimpliVity, which is the highest level of data availability. Well, in the storage array itself here, we also have that same highest level of availability in what we call triple plus parity. So normally, all of our competitors are using either RAID 5, which protects against a single drive failure, or RAID 6, which prevents 2 drives worth of failure. Well, we said, nah, not good enough for us. We're going to do triple parity on our adaptive arrays, and this allows 3 drives to fail, and there will be no data loss. Nimble has never lost customer data. Very, very significant statement to make. So this is our adaptive flash array at the bottom, where we have 18 large form factor locations, and then we have in the bottom left 6 half-height small form factor locations for the cache SSDs that we use in our adaptive flash model. In our all-flash model, we're still using the triple plus parity, but we actually have integrated spare capability and parity at the drive level, and we have 2 banks of SSDs, Bank A and Bank B, so you can have ultimately up to 48 drives in this 4U solution. So what are we talking about with this triple plus parity? We can tolerate 3 simultaneous failures of any 3 SSDs, and then on top of that, since we have this integrated spare space in the all-flash array, we can tolerate, once that rebuilds extremely quickly, we can then immediately tolerate a 4th drive failure. Now, we couldn't tolerate 4 drives failing at the same exact time, but since we have that integrated spare space, that rebuild is lightning fast, and we're immediately putting you back up into the situation where you can sustain another drive loss. We've also built into our code intra meaning within the drive parity to fix sector losses from unrecoverable read errors. And why that is important, and let me take a step back. The last thing here is we do very, very fast RAID builds as well. I should have put that higher, and because I'm going to that next slide on intra-drive parity. So before I get to intra-drive parity, we only rebuild the segments. We're not rebuilding the low-level sectors of a drive. We're only rebuilding the data, which makes the RAID rebuilds extremely fast as well. So why are we doing intra-drive parity on these SSD drives? Well, Google did a 6-year study, and they showed that between 20 and 63% of SSDs develop UREs in 4 years. That's a huge number. 30 to 80% of drives develop at least 1 bad block. After only 2 to 4 bad blocks on a drive, 50% chance hundreds will follow, and 2 to 7% develop at least 1 bad chip during the first 4 years. SSDs fail differently than hard drives, spinning drives, and the actual SSD error rates are less attractive than hard disks. So Nimble Engineering, being paranoid about data integrity, we wanted to make sure we covered every base on how we're protecting our customers' data. So we have only 1 RAID choice, makes it very easy for you. There's nothing for you to configure. This is the way it works out of the box. You can sustain any 3 drives plus further sector errors. And one other thing we do is we do a multi-stage checksum. So as the data traverses through the stack, the software stack, we're not just doing a checksum right at the last moment while we're writing it to the disk. we're doing it at 4 or 5 higher levels all through the HBA and through the whole data path. And I'm sorry I didn't include a slide, but it's pretty sophisticated how we do this. And we're even doing integrity on remote replicas. So as we are replicating data, we're doing checksums on that replication as well. Snapshots have it as well. So we're trying to capture any hidden corruption that might occur, and we have a multi-stage checksum. Our competitors don't have that. And after all of this insane data protection, we still get a 73.6 usable capacity ratio from the raw space. So if you have 100 terabytes of raw, you will see 73 terabytes or 74 terabytes of usable space, which is insane for that with that level of data protection. There's a calculator online to show you how this compares to our competition. So if you do a relative reliability math, this calculator that you can get, anyone can get, if you normalize it to 1 for a RAID 50, and this is basically 2 6-drive RAID 5 sets, RAID 10 would be 21 times more reliable. RAID 60 would be 6,620 times more reliable. But triple plus parity with 24 SSDs would be 466,000 times more reliable than that RAID 50. Really, really nice to have. And why this is going to become even more important as you buy future Nimble storage arrays, when we get to a 100 terabyte SSD drive, that may have reliability challenges because that's how SSD manufacturers are getting that 100 terabytes in a drive, because they're lowering the reliability. Or maybe there's a bad batch that we've all heard about. We lived through many bad batches from the hard drive vendors through the years, and it's going to happen with SSDs as well. So if we normalize it down to RAID 5 as being 1, and this is just a RAID 5 set of 6 drives, then if we do RAID 6 with 16 drives, so now we're going to more drives, and that is where the issues, you have significantly worse reliability. And RAID, 16 drives is very common in some of our competitors with 14 plus 2 RAID aggregate or RAID set, I should say. Or if we go into a 20 drive RAID set using RAID 6, we're now down to even worse, because now more drives is a worse thing to have, because the reliability of the drives are worse. And so as you get more drives, your error rates are going to go up, because you have much higher probability that you're going to have these unreliable issues. So to finish it out, so what is our Nimble storage array look like? We have 2 models. We have the all-flash series. How can you purchase this and how can you upgrade it? We have an all-flash series on the left. We have an adaptive flash series on the right, all running the same code. On the left, we start out with a quarter populated 20 series, and we go to a 40 and 60 and 80, and you can upgrade all of these arrays in place without downtime, data in place, to a higher performing controller. You can also add additional storage internal to the chassis if you haven't built it up initially full in that first controller cage, and then you could add up to 2 additional external chassis for the all-flash storage arrays. Then what we can do is we can aggregate these together into a group of 4. You can have 2 or 3 or 4 in a group, and now you can stripe your data across all 4 of these to get massive IOPS and capacity. And we can do the same thing with the adaptive flash array, which is spinning drives in the back currently, and NVRAM and SSDs for cache in the front to the host. We can add up to 6 additional enclosures here, giving some very, very high capacity capabilities. And we can group those together. And the nice thing is we can group them together, mix and match, so you can potentially move volumes back and forth with the click of a mouse between your adaptive flash to an all flash, and you can upgrade the whole management group as one in the future as well, making it very easy to upgrade it when you have to upgrade the Nimble OS code. Then we took it a step further and said, okay, now how do we get this offsite to a cloud environment? And several years ago, we entered into an agreement with some local service providers, 2 rack space providers, 2 Amazon and Microsoft, and I'll show you how that works in a moment. So we give you the whole package. And the other thing we wrote into the Nimble code was we said, you know what, there's an app to data gap. A lot of times an end user will be in an application, it's taking forever to load. They called IT admins, and the IT admins say, I really don't know what's causing that. So we instrumented our software not just to be looking at the storage array issues, but let's look outside the storage array. And what we found was 54% of the issues are actually not in the storage array. So we started focusing on the outside world. We wrote initially to VMware, and we've been doing this for several years. We're now writing, it hasn't been announced yet, but pretty soon you'll be seeing Microsoft SQL, Hyper-V, Oracle database, and we'll be able to instrument external and gather data. So what we're doing is we're taking data from the storage array, which is connected to vCenter on premise. We're taking the vCenter logs, correlating those, and sending them up to our HPE cloud, InfoSight cloud, to run predictive analytics on it and to do global learning. So now we're able to say not just that your volume is slow, but we're saying that you have some noisy neighbor VMs in a data store. We can attribute latency to either the host CPU, the storage area network, or the storage itself. We give you host and memory analytics, so you don't have to be learning and paying for VMware's higher level tools. We give you 90% of what you typically look for, if not 95% or 100% of what you typically look for free in our InfoSight portal. We show you inactive VMs. We show you top performing VMs. So we're giving you all this information external to the storage array. We're also protecting you because if we see one customer with a problem, we run our machine learning on that, deep insight analytics on it, and we realize, oh, that customer did this, and they have that, and that. So now we know we can lock customers down, putting up a blacklist to say you are not allowed to upgrade to this level of Nimble OS code or firmware or whatever because another customer had an issue, and we're protecting our other customers from this whole global learning capability built into our predictive analytics and our artificial intelligence in InfoSight. We also, as I said earlier, have taken out level 1 and level 2 support. So our support is one of the number one reasons why people buy Nimble Storage is for our support. And you pick up the phone, you call Nimble support, and you immediately reach level 3 engineers. We don't hire level 1 and level 2. Sorry to say for our society, we've machine learned them out of those jobs, which is too bad. Good for customers, not great for people looking for an entry-level job. So now you reach level 3 engineering immediately, and our call to resolution is very, very, very quick. 9 out of 10 problems are automatically detected, and most are resolved by our artificial intelligence. So we're actually opening and closing cases for you automatically. We're providing rapid root cause analysis, which could take days or weeks and sometimes months. Now we can do it because that's just the way we design things, so we know exactly what's going on. We can correlate it across the entire stack. We have no level 1, level 2 support chain pane, and we have a 40-minute average time to case resolution, which is very, very quick. So we're actually providing 6 nines of availability to our customers, and we now have a guarantee that you get that. If we don't give you that, then we'll give you some free months of support as you renew your support contract in the future. So we put our money where our mouth is. So we're still covering this on-premise to off-premise primary storage. We saw that in SimpliVity, we saw it in Nimble, and now how do we take our primary storage off-site? Well, what we found was, and this is these slides cover more than just the replication piece. It's like many customers are actually wanting to move to the cloud, and they say, hey, cloud first for my compute. The challenge is the cloud storage was built for these object storage models. They really weren't built for enterprise applications that have a much higher requirement for storage services. So, because what happens with this native cloud block storage is, they actually have a 1 in 500 failure rate, so it's really, really poor. You have to be doing data replication at the application level now if you really want to bring any mission critical apps up to the cloud. You also have cloud lock-in, so now it's really hard to get your data out of it because it costs so much to write that 50 terabytes of data out again. That's a huge issue. And then you don't really see what's going on in the storage. It's a black box penalty if you start using cloud storage. Well, we saw this and we said, hey, let's choose some data centers close to these Amazon East, Amazon West, Microsoft Azure East and West. Let's get the same pipes into that so we have the same high performance networking that even their local block storage has. And let's put our nimble storage array so we can connect to those guest compute and provide storage. So how it works is you go into our HPE Cloud Volume Cloud Portal, you provision gigabytes and IOPS, trivially easy. That is now available. You present that to either Amazon or Azure as an Amazon, an EC2 compute instant. You'll use an iSCSI initiator in that guest OS, connect with the same latency that you would get going to their enterprise block storage. And now you can take thin, fast snapshots. You can do thin, fast clones. Because if you do those snapshots and clones within Amazon and Microsoft, you're paying double potentially because it has to clone all the data. You're paying a significantly more amount of money for that. So we can use nimble clones for test and dev. We can also switch clouds, but take a snapshot, make a clone on nimble storage, connect what was to an EC2 in Amazon, now connect it to Azure VM. We also allow you to do SQL failover clusters because there's they don't quite offer that in Azure. You have to upgrade to the latest and greatest SQL capability to get that kind of functionality. And if you're using older SQL, we give you the capability to doing SQL failover clusters. We also allow, as I said, the on-premise capability. You can now do an on-ramp to the cloud, or you can do snapshots periodically to the cloud volumes so that you can actually have a cold storage on an HPE cloud volume. And then if your on-premise data center had a catastrophe, you can then just simply spin that up and connect that, not spin it up, but connect it to a compute instant and start working. So that's all available. In the future, we're going to show you this, use the same interface that you have for your on-premise InfoSite portal. Right now, it's a different cloud portal, but in the next few months, we're combining those. So you'll get a one-stop shop. It's not really that hard to have two different browsers up, Windows up to do that, but we're going to make it even easier in the future. So we're providing enterprise grade, easy mobility, and global visibility, and we deliver this as a subscription. It's a monthly service it's a managed service you're procuring through networking technologies. They have packs that they sell, and then you're getting a monthly ding against what those packs that you purchase through networking technologies. So, the new 4-3-1 rule, we take care of that first and second copy, take it off-site, even on-premise, and then we can take that to the cloud, or that could be an HPE cloud volume instead of what you're seeing on a little bit to the left of that red box. So now let's finish the presentation and talk about, all right, how do you want to take it to a whole nother format? And let's talk about disk-based backups, HPE Store Once, and what we call Express Protect, solving the backup and restore problem. So, as I said, many years ago, we started developing this Store Once deduplication appliance. We just introduced a month ago our 4th generation of these appliances. Typically, our customers are seeing 20-to-1 storage efficiencies. So over time, as you keep writing the same full backups to these appliances, we're not landing that data on the disks, and you're getting 20-to-1 storage efficiencies. We also have offered for several years now a virtual version of this. So if you have some old disk lying around that, hey, I'm good, since it's backup, I'm good with using my old array that I have, present that 10 terabytes, 20 terabytes, 50 terabytes, 1 terabyte to this virtual machine running the Store Once code. We call it the Store Once VSA. You have all the feature function capability of a dedupe backup target. And what we've done is we've taken that even a step further into the cloud, and I'll talk about that in a moment. But the other reason we're best in class is that we think we do partner integration and partner relationship best. So on the left-hand side, we have a whole raft of backup ISVs, Commvault, Micro Focus, which we spun off our HPE Data Protector to Micro Focus, Veritas, Veeam. There's another half dozen that support the Store Once backup appliances as well. Veeam is really our go-to in some respects, just because how tightly it's integrated into not just the Store Once appliance, but into the storage arrays. But what else we've done is we say, hey, we've created a new interface to this backup appliance called Catalyst. And the backup software leverages this interface to give even higher performance backups and restores. But we've also written it to the application level. Really, it's database that's most interesting. So we've written it to SQL Server, Oracle, and SAP HANA. So now these apps and databases, and VMware and Exchange as well, can have drivers that can back up directly to the Store Once appliance. For example, in Oracle provides a RMAN utility to do a dump to disk. Well, we have written an interface so that will go to a Store Once disk, or a Store Once space. So very tightly integrated with applications. And then more recently, we made a relationship with the public and private cloud capabilities of Amazon and Microsoft, and a company called Scality, which does object storage. But Scality provides an Amazon interface into their back-end object storage. So now we have the capability to write to cloud. Then we also, with Store Once, have very, very tight integration with our Nimble storage and our HPE 3PAR storage. So both primary arrays can be controlled by backup utilities. So I talked about how do we leverage the cloud. So we have our HPE array here, be it Nimble or 3PAR, for example, and we have data protection software on the back. Say it's ours, say it's Veritas, NetBackup, etc., and that will actually take, or Commvault for that matter, and that will control taking a snapshot. From that snapshot, it will auto mount it and then back up to the Store Once appliance at the local data center. Then the backup software communicates with that Store Once appliance and says, hey, we want to do a copy job, a Catalyst copy job, up to the what we call HPE Cloud Bank, and that will be a blob at either Azure or Amazon, and that will dedupe and compress up to the cloud, so now you can leverage that for offsite immutable type storage potentially. We also, if you're big enough, you want to build your own cloud, you can purchase through HPE and Networking Technologies the Scality licensing, buy the HPE servers, run have us install the Scality application, and that too can be a Catalyst copy job target since it has an S3 interface into Scality. As a side note, this isn't, quote, Cloud Bank. We actually, in Azure, can host a Store Once VSA up there, so you can do more of a replication from a Store Once appliance to a Store Once appliance. I'm not sure if many people will do that anymore now that we have our Cloud Bank, but it is available as an option. So Cloud Bank licensing is very important to understand because we have two licenses. It's the regular read-write capability so that you can keep updating the data over time of backups, do incrementals, send that up to the Cloud Bank, do that Catalyst copy job. That will only send the delta data between the last block changes. Or what several customers are saying, hey, you know what? I want to protect against people harming my organization by getting into the backups and overwriting them, et cetera, et cetera. So what we've created was a detached license for half the cost, basically. You do your annual backup to the Catalyst copy of my annual backup or quarterly backup to the cloud. Now you detach that and nothing can harm that. That is there forever, or as long as you want to keep it. You can delete it ultimately, so you still have to protect who can have access to that data. That management interface, but that is now immutable and detached. It can then be read from anything, any other Store Once appliance. Fire up. Say for example, your primary data center fails, totally burned to the ground. You had this Cloud Bank set up there. You have another area that you quick buy 5 servers and you buy a Nimble array and we ship it to you in 3 days and you get it all back up and running, but your data's not there. What you would do is you would simply, spin up a Store Once VSA there and then basically connect to that Cloud Bank and restore your data. So we've covered the bases. Our competition doesn't have that quite flexibility, so we really think we're winning the day here. We also provide a free tool that is a backup application. It doesn't provide a catalog currently at this state, so it's not as granular on restore capabilities, but not bad. We actually can leverage Veeam's Explorer to interrogate what's happening here. So if you have Veeam licenses, this could be very, very interesting. And this is very, very interesting for large files. Everyone knows it's nearly impossible to back up in a good window, a file server. So what we can do is do a block level, change level backup, and then use Veeam Explorer to go interrogate that, and then do file level restores from Veeam. Or you can do file level restores from Recovery Manager Central. And what it is a virtual machine. It's a free license that comes with our Nimble storage array, comes with our 3-part storage array. It will manage the array snapshots, and technically you don't even need to use a store once deduplication target. You can use this Recovery Manager Central to do application consistent snapshots, because we have versions for VMware, we have versions for SQL, we have versions for Oracle and Hyper-V, so that now you can do application consistent snapshots versus crash consistent, all managed by Recovery Manager Central. And then if you want to, and we highly recommend you do this because it's beautifully integrated, we can do what we call express protect backups from the storage array to the store once deduplication target appliance. And then we can run synthetic fulls on that to make sure that those are consolidated and in best format to restore. And Recovery Manager Central can have up to 32 streams going between the storage array and the store once target. So it's a very high performance solution. The software is included in the arrays, so really recommend you looking at that. So we now have covered both the on-premise and the off-premise 4-3-1 rule, all with some utilities that are built in, and we hope that this answers your questions about what HPE provides, and I'm ready for responding to any questions if anyone has any.
Well, thank you, Don.
No
Great
problem.
presentation. I got Tom on here as well. I'm going to collect the questions. Tom, do you have a few things you'd like to add? Hold on one second. Technical difficulties.
Oh, I'm on. Sorry about that.
There we go.
That was a good presentation. There's a whole lot of information out there. One thing I want to emphasize is the importance of InfoSight and the analytics tool. I can't stress enough how this tool is useful for troubleshooting and helping to eliminate some of the headaches associated with managing your storage, and even some of the issues and concerns and problems we have with hypervisors out there. We've used it in the past already for certain customers to identify some lingering issues, and it's a valuable tool. It makes your life a little bit easier, again, in the troubleshooting aspect of things and management. I'd like to say,
one more thing to add, Tom, to that is that if we have any 3-part customers, we have already done that integration work. So if you haven't done so far, you should update your 3-part array to the appropriate firmware and service processor, and that could also start giving cross-stack analytics showing VMware within the 3-part environment as well.
One other thing I want to bring up too is if you are looking at a storage upgrade project or any of those initiatives are coming up, I think Nimble is a very attractive solution for you. I think you need to look at maybe the ease of implementation and migration over to this product, the ease of management. It's one of those solutions that we believe is easy to slip into for learning curves, implementation, and long-term management. If you're looking at or considering a storage uplift and servers, I think SimpliVity is really something you need to look at and for addressing that entire project. Due to the integration piece, the ease of management, again, really we keep stressing that we want to make things easier, bigger, better, faster. We're more than happy to talk to you about any of this stuff. We can even demonstrate much of this product either in-house or with some other vendors out there and get your hands on it so you can see this stuff in action.
Thanks, Tom.
Yep, absolutely. Thank you.
All good points. Couple questions that did come up over the course of the presentation, Don. Tom, feel free to jump in as well if you have anything to add. First one is where do you see Nimble replacing other vendor storage solutions and why?
Sure, it is a very broad-based solution. So it will go from a $20,000 array up to a multi-$100,000 array with petabytes. We see no real limitation of who can use a Nimble storage array. For the very largest organizations with just massive 10, 20, 30 gigabytes per second of data, we still recommend considering and evaluating our 3-part technology, since we can go from 4 to 8 controllers. But for the 85, 90% of the market, we think Nimble storage should be considered. We have both adaptive flash and all flash, which really differentiates us from companies that are only flash solutions, because really, since every array truly is a hybrid array, our architecture is very efficient at leveraging, making sure all the host I/O is serviced out of the front end, and then the back end doesn't really matter. So some organizations say I have to go all flash for my production environment, and that's fine. Happy to do that, and we can sell that, and we have dedupe and compression, and we can tell you why our dedupe and compression is significantly better than others in a lot of ways. But then for your DR site, if you have your own DR site, you can consider using an adaptive flash array, since most likely you won't be really using it for anything but DR, or maybe test and dev, and then our caching capability really works well for maybe a less performing requirement, although our adaptive arrays can do 20, 30, 40,000 IOPS easily as well. So.
All right. And one last question. Does SimpliVity include hypervisor licensing, and do I have to bring my own?
Yes, it does. You do have to bring your own. It does not include hypervisor licensing. You can procure that through Networking Technologies on HPE SKUs, so that you can leverage our single-stop shop for service and support on your whole environment. And we highly recommend you do this. We have the closest links with VMware level 3, level 4 engineering. So, but we have hundreds, if not thousands, of VMware engineers on staff. So we recommend getting your SKUs through HPE VMware SKUs through Networking Technologies to have a single-stop shop.
Great. Well, I do appreciate that, Don. Thank you so much for doing the presentation today. Hopefully it was very informative to all our guests. Tom, any words in closing before we wrap up?
I think, again, we invite anybody who has questions to reach out to us. We're more than happy to demonstrate some of this technology. We believe in it so much we have it in-house from the Nimble and 3-part perspective. Sorry, we don't have a SimpliVity yet, but we can also demonstrate that through various other resources. Again, please feel free to ask, send us your questions and reach out to us anytime. I'd be more than happy to answer your questions and show off this technology.
And to add to that, if there are any questions, you can reach out to us either by giving us a call at the office, 814-836-0000, or you can email sales@net-cloud.com, and we'll take it from there. With that being said, I'd just like to thank Don and also Tom for a great presentation today. Also, just want to remind everybody our next Tech Talk will be November 28th. We'll be discussing extreme networks. So I look forward to seeing you all there. And until then, have a great month, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.